We interrupt this broadcast with breaking news of an unprecedented global event. At precisely 10 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, something extraordinary happened. 15 of the world's most prominent cities went dark. Not a flicker, not a brownout, a total and instantaneous power failure. From the neon-drenched streets of Tokyo to the historic avenues of Rome, the lights simply went out, all at once, all at the exact same second. We are receiving frantic reports from our correspondents around the globe. Communication is sporadic. Information is scarce. What we know for sure is this. Something has happened on a scale we have never witnessed before. This is not a local power outage. This is not a regional grid failure. This is something else entirely. The cities affected span every continent, every time zone. New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, Sydney. All of them plunged into an unnerving, primitive darkness. Early reports describe scenes of confusion turning rapidly to panic. Car alarms blare into the silent night. Subways have ground to a halt deep beneath the earth. Millions of people are trapped in elevators, in their homes, in the dark. The world's great metropolises, symbols of human ingenuity and progress, have been silenced in the blink of an eye. The question on everyone's mind is simple and terrifying. How? The simultaneity is what defies all current understanding. Experts we've managed to reach are stunned. They say a coordinated event of this magnitude is, by all conventional logic, impossible. Power grids are designed with redundancies. They are isolated by oceans and politics. For them all to fail at the same microsecond suggests a cause that transcends our known infrastructure. Was this a coordinated attack? A natural phenomenon of unimaginable power? Or something stranger? Something we are not yet prepared to comprehend? The silence from official sources is deafening, only adding to the growing sense of dread spreading across the planet tonight. As we stand here in our emergency studio, running on backup generators, the world feels smaller and infinitely more vulnerable than it did just hours ago. The very systems that connect us, that power our lives, have been severed. The list of cities reads like a roll call of global power and culture. Split-screen montage. Tokyo, Berlin, Moscow, Sydney go from fully lit to dark. New York City vanished from the power grid. London went black within the same second. Reports flood in. A cascade of darkness washing over the planet. Berlin fell silent. Moscow's Red Square plunged into an oppressive gloom. In Asia, the same story. Tokyo forced into sudden slumber. Beijing extinguished. Shanghai extinguished. Hong Kong extinguished. The event was precise. It was surgical. Unlike anything power grid experts have seen, investigators are baffled. Not the same electrical frequency, not the same undersea cables, not the same grid software. This wasn't a domino effect. It was simultaneous coordinated collapse. Sydney went dark. Sao Paulo went dark. Cairo fell dark. Dubai's skyline disappeared. The event ignored geography, politics, and engineering. It was as if a switch was flipped on a planetary scale. Think about the precision required. 15 distinct isolated grids shut down at the exact same moment. Military analysts. No known public cyber weapon can do this. Suggests an actor with terrifying understanding, or an unknown weapon. Cities seem chosen to maximize disruption. Financial hubs, political capitals, cultural centers. 150 million people lost power instantly. At 10 o'clock GMT, everything stopped. Lights, refrigeration, communication. In New York City, the blackout hit at 6 o'clock in the evening Eastern Time, just as the evening rush hour was reaching its peak. One moment, the city was a symphony of light and motion. The next, it was utter silence and darkness. Times Square, the crossroads of the world, went from a blinding spectacle of digital billboards to a black hole. The sudden absence of light and sound was disorienting. A collective gasp from the thousands packed into the square. Then came the screaming. Panic erupted as people surged, blinded and confused. It was a stampede in the dark. The city's vital arteries seized up immediately. Over 600 subway trains froze in their tunnels, carrying nearly 1 million commuters. Deep underground, passengers were trapped in crowded cars, with no light, no air conditioning, no communication with the outside world. On the streets above, traffic lights went dead, causing instant gridlock and crashing metal. Cars became useless metal boxes. People abandoned vehicles, adding to chaos on the sidewalks. Iconic yellow cabs stranded too. First responders were overwhelmed within minutes. The 911 system, reliant on electricity, flooded and failed. Hospitals on backup generators faced impossible choices. Generators powered only critical life support systems, not whole facilities. Surgeries halted mid-procedure. Elevators stopped, trapping patients and staff. In a city of 8.5 million, emergency services were brought to their knees. Sirens went from constant to sporadic to eerily absent as vehicles sat in gridlock. As hours dragged on, a more primal reality set in. No running water in high-rise buildings, no refrigeration, no way to communicate with loved ones. People isolated, trapped in vertical prisons. The city, once proud of its resilience, faced an unprepared crisis. The darkness was a great equalizer, affecting everyone from penthouse suites on Park Avenue to the crowded apartments of the Lower East Side. New York City, the beacon of the modern world, had been sent back to the Dark Ages. The scenes of chaos in New York were mirrored across the globe, each city descending into its own unique version of pandemonium. In Tokyo, the blackout struck at 7 o'clock in the morning local time. The city's famously punctual and complex train system ground to a halt, stranding millions of commuters. The Shinkansen, the bullet train, stopped dead on its tracks. In a culture that values order and predictability, the sudden, inexplicable failure of technology created a profound sense of unease. Crowds swelled at train stations with no information and no way to get home or to work. The meticulous order of Japanese society seemed to fray at the edges. Across the Eurasian landmass, in Berlin, the darkness fell at midnight. The city's vibrant nightlife came to an abrupt end. Clubs and Kreuzberg clubs and Mitte tourists wandering near the Brandenburg Gate found themselves lost in an unnerving historical echo, the landmark suddenly dark and imposing. The U-Bahn. The S-Bahn stopped, trapping late-night revelers and workers underground. Berlin, a city that has rebuilt itself from the ashes of division, was once again facing a silent, invisible threat that paralyzed its daily life. In Moscow, the blackout occurred at 1 o'clock in the morning. The Kremlin, usually a brightly lit fortress of power, went dark. The grand, ornate stations of the Moscow metro, known as the People's Palaces, became dark tombs for those caught within them. The sense of shock was palpable. In a country where the state projects an image of absolute control, this sudden and total loss of power was a significant psychological blow. It suggested a vulnerability that the authorities were keen to deny, but the evidence was undeniable. The heart of Russian power was just as susceptible as any other city on the list. The story repeated itself with localized, terrifying details in each affected metropolis. In Sydney, the iconic Opera House Harbour bridge lights were extinguished. In Sao Paulo, the vast, sprawling city was paralyzed by traffic chaos and fear. In Cairo, the sounds of the call to prayer were mixed with the rising noise of a confused populace. It was a shared global experience of vulnerability. For the first time, people in these disparate, culturally distinct cities were united by a single, terrifying event. They were all in the dark, together, and no one could tell them why.